Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the midweek edition of the New Fashion Conservatives podcast. I'm Justin Phillips, and with me, as always, is Shadow Governor Voss.
Robin Voss's strongest soldier.
And to get you up to speed on everything that's been happening this week, we have to start with the biggest political news going on, and that is Chris Kapenga is running for county executive in Waukesha County. It's good for him. This is, of course, let's talk about this for a minute. He did well on the Dan O'Donnell show where he made his announcement. I think it balanced his message on wanting to run with being respectful to Paul and his memory, which is a weird sort of thing when you have to go in there and be like, yes, I'm going to run for county executive and I'm going to be super excited about it. But the reason I'm running is kind of a somber note. So I think he did well balancing that. It's going to be a little extra weird for Chris as well because he's a sitting senator. So this fall, in back-to-back elections, people in his Senate district are going to be able to vote for him twice in 2 weeks. Ironically enough, in 2012, something similar happened when he was running against Paul Farrow, both sitting representatives to replace Rich Zipperer, who was running for, or who left the Senate to become Scott Walker's chief of staff.
Well, time is a flat circle sometimes, so some things come back around. But funny how that is. But I mean, it's unfortunate that by state law this has to happen. So it's like some people might think it's insensitive, but really this is just you shrug your shoulders and be like, it is what it is. You can't really do much about it. But obviously, being a state senator, representing a lot of Waukesha County, clear, I don't want to say favorite, but certainly a very strong candidate. And I'm sure people are going to have to probably start jumping in fairly soon because he is such a strong candidate. And if they want a chance, they'll have to start early.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate too much on how that race will look because we know there are some others who are still kicking the tires. But there are also some folks who want to play kingmaker here and they want to get their preferred candidate in. And they already started kind of floating some stuff about Chris because he is
conservative.
Yes, he's very conservative. He doesn't really bend to special interest groups. He sometimes that hurts him. Sometimes, he doesn't take the tough votes that you kind of have to eat when you're Senate president or in the majority, and he didn't do it. And he would always stand on those principles. And even if he was like one of the 4 state senators that was voting against things, he was happy to be that guy. And some people are extrapolating that out to say that that's not going to make him a good county executive. I disagree. I think that's a good thing to have when you're, uncompromised on your principles. It's where you want someone to be.
Yeah, and county government is leaps and bounds different than the state level government.
And being one vote of 33 as opposed to the county executive.
Yep.
Different roles.
Completely different roles. Obviously, you're going to see similar governing styles, but I think it's fascinating. But it's kind of you start at county government, go to state government, but obviously being the executive is a huge responsibility. So, I'm sure that there's going to be a race, and I'm sure Cab's probably up to it. So we'll see how that works out.
Like I said, we're not trying to play kingmaker like some others who, are either trying to get Chris in and because they want their friend to be a state senator, or they're also at the same time trashing Chris because they want someone else to run because they want to be in that corner as well. So we're not those type of people. What I will find interesting about this, and the last we'll talk about quick, is he said he'd resign if he wins, which, of course makes sense. You shouldn't be double dipping. But it's also a weird one where if he wins in November or December, if there's a primary and a general, I would hope he doesn't resign his Senate seat until April of 27 after the general election for county executive for the full term.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you at least can push off that special election for the 33rd Senate district until fall of next year. And
no, you bring up a good point. Needless to say, I think Waukesha County is going to have more elections than they want to.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little crazy. There's going to be a lot of ballots flying around. There's going to be a lot of primary. Who's on this ballot? A lot of confusion, which is why we will just have to educate the masses and let them know what's coming up.
And I feel for some of those smaller community clerks because that's about the same time property tax bills are. So they're under a lot, and that's part of the job. But still, it's an inconvenient thing regardless. But state law is state law, and we'll keep you up to date on the candidates who jump into that race. See if Chris scares off some, or if some others are going to take their free shot at it. So, let's talk about the real big news this week. and the absolute disaster and complete and utter implosion of Sara Rodriguez's campaign. And Shadow Gov, you have such a smile on your face. I'm going to just turn this over to you.
I mean, is it that obvious? Can you hear it in my inflection? How excited I am for this. And it's not necessarily that I am happy about the downfall of somebody, but I am. However, it's almost like poetic how it happened. But first, before we get into all the nitty gritty, fun parts of the analysis, essentially, for those that didn't, hear, weren't paying attention to Wisconsin political news on Monday at around 3 p.m. or Sunday night at approximately 10 p.m. when a press release was sent out from Sara Rodriguez's campaign that said that, hey, we have some serious problems regarding our financial reporting, and the finance reports are due the 15th. So today, as you're listening. And she basically said, yeah, we have some serious issues. We've contacted the ethics commission, and we're basically turning ourselves in because my campaign manager, or Sarah's campaign manager, basically cooked the books.
Yes.
And that's not being hyperbolic. That's not being exaggerated. She seems to have cooked the books. And of course, fast forward to Monday at 3 p.m., there's this big press conference, probably the most people that Sara has ever had at a press conference, the most eyes Sara has ever had on her, and more cameras. And she did this big press conference where she said, my campaign manager basically lied to me, misled me on how much money we had. We double counted donations from people. We reported more money than we had. We had expenses that were unpaid.
Vendors unpaid.
And then to cap off, and probably the reason this all came to light, at least that's what's being alleged, was last week, Sara Rodriguez put in a $1 million ad buy.
Yes.
Which would have been the biggest one this primary cycle, I believe.
Got news out of it.
For a candidate.
Yep.
And Sara said, I'm not seeing the ads. It's been a few days. I don't see the ads rolling on my television or, on streaming or whatever. Well, you check in with the media buyers and say, we haven't been paid. The invoices are open. No one's been paid yet. Well, and then according to Sara, they looked at the books. Oh, snap. We don't have any money, or we don't have any of the money that we thought we did. And that's where we're at.
Yeah.
How does this happen?
So it opened so many more questions than
we don't have
she provided answers to. Yeah. And the first is, where'd the money go? What money is real? What money isn't? And why is your campaign manager the only person with access to the bank account? That's the bigger deal. Is Sara had such blind trust in the single person that she got, quote unquote, blindsided by this. Now, there were some concerns about her reports in January from an account on X that had like 0 followers.
0 followers, 0 following, until myself followed it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, now they got like 40 followers.
Yeah.
But they were talking about, $150,000 loan to the campaign that had no line items or anything. So we have no idea. Maybe that's wrong. But like clearly someone saw this and said, this is a bit odd. And at this press conference, Sara, of course, said, hey, I'm not going to go into details. I'm not going to be specific. She tried to be very disciplined. I'm a strong leader. I'm coming to you guys and being transparent. I'm saying no one else would be up here saying that we're taking responsibility. Well, you kind of, the only problem with that is the buck does stop with you.
Yeah.
And either you take full responsibility for hiring the people you did, or in delegating those tasks, like you were the candidate. Okay. There's no blame game here. There's a comment, if someone says something wrong, a staff, the boss will take the hit sometimes, to understand that like, hey, this was on me. I should have, known that you were going to say this, or, I should have taught you better. But Sarah's trying to throw the campaign manager underneath the bus completely for all this.
She's trying to have a, I knew nothing sort of vibe, while also saying, we're moving forward as a campaign and the buck stops with me. And she's trying to have it both ways. And I think the real one that, I don't know if there were gasps in the room or if it was just, you heard it collectively on X, is when they asked, how much money do you actually have? And I think she got twisted on it a couple times before she said we have roughly $200,000.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to be exaggerated, but I physically recoiled and audibly gasped. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Now, some people might think like 200,000, that's a lot of money. Oh, for someone that thought that they had $1 million, which means that they probably thought they had $1.5 million or, a little bit extra on top of that.
Yeah.
That's
you have
nothing.
20% of that money.
And now, mind you, there's, of course, the whole part of it where she has all these invoices.
Yeah.
Who knows how many invoices she has unpaid?
Even 200,000 cash on hand at that moment is not 200,000 you can put into ads. It's not 200,000 that can go into that ad buy or put it on streaming or whatever.
You have to pay staff.
Yeah.
You have to pay invoices. You have to pay reimbursements for mileage.
I don't know how many staff she has, but 200,000 might get you to the primary.
Yeah.
If you have a decent
scraping by.
Yeah. And that's without having to spend money on TV ads or not choosing not to go on radio or whatever. Like $200,000 is let's say you have everything zeroed out. All the vendors are paid. You still have that. Like, how much do you have to pay for staff salary? Like half of that? More?
I mean, I think a conservative estimate, maybe this has been going on for at least 6 months and probably longer. Okay. She could have $100,000 in invoices or just expenses that have to be paid between now and the primary. That leaves you at what? I'm just spitballing $100K. What does $100K get you in 30 days before the election? Digital?
Yeah.
Okay.
A good month of 2 weeks of digital.
Okay. Sure. Fine. Go ahead and do that. But you need TV. You've been playing catch up you got into the race first. You've had months to fundraise. You've had months to build name ID.
She got into the race before the governor got out of the race.
Correct.
Like, she's had this since day one. She knew weeks in advance. She could have been calling donors at that point. And now she is at best third in the primary.
Well, she's been really stuck at third for a while now. And one thing I wanted to mention about staff, now this has happened before, and you kind of hear the horror stories about staff not getting paid. We don't really know what happened regarding this money. Yeah. Sarah's throwing the campaign manager underneath the bus. Okay. There seems to be more to the story. Some background on the campaign manager. Had been with Sarah for a number of years. Right. As she was lieutenant governor, had ran previous campaigns, it sounds like.
I think I found her LinkedIn. She was on the ADCC finance team.
She was the ADCC, so the Assembly Democrat Campaign Committee, doing finances for them. So, I mean, that's a pretty high-level position. Right. Had run a number of legislative seats. I think has her own consulting, governmental, quasi-agency, lobbying outfit. I don't really know. But so this lady is not someone that's like, I just picked this up like a year ago. Right. Has been doing this for a while.
A long resume.
Yeah. So how does she screw this up? I mean, this is a monumental.
Well, that's the other question is, if she screwed this up, like, did she screw up any of Sarah's previous finance reports? All those are about to be checked.
Oh yeah. The Ethics Commission is about to have a heyday, probably checking all kinds of stuff. And honestly, you can maybe make the question that anything that this campaign manager filed could be put into question. So maybe when she was finance director at ADCC, now that was a number of years ago,
but still, is this the first time? Do you think she's doing it, or do you think she's kind of nipped around this before? Like, I'm speculating here.
I know we're speculating, but there is no good reason any logical person has $200,000 in the bank and puts in a ad buy of $1 million that they know they can't pay. And like, what? You think you're just going to all of a sudden like Irish goodbye?
Right.
And no one will find out? You're going to get caught. So what were you thinking? So, I mean, what is the logical explanation? She had a mental break. She had just had a psychotic breakdown and just couldn't deal with the pressure. She lied purposely to continue having a paycheck or something. Or she just has done this continuously and has never gotten caught because it's been at such a scale. I mean, there's a bunch of theories, none of them good, and none of them super logical. So we're missing like a piece here, which is why I think if there was staff that goes unpaid, that's how we'll find out.
Yeah. Yep.
And someone doesn't get a paycheck, then they're like, I'll do my tell-all.
Exactly.
Blab to the media.
Yep.
And they'll say, well, the campaign manager was, taking skimming a 10% off the top or something.
Right. Which is then criminal. Like,
yes.
Which is, we're in the gray area right now.
I'm not alleging that.
No.
As an example.
Saying we are in this kind of weird gray area without knowing motive or reason or whether it was, how deliberate it was or the reason for it. We don't know if it's like criminal level behavior, but it could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're just now getting the fact that Sara is openly admitting this stuff. Probably. I mean, she's trying to do damage control.
Yeah.
So just imagine when she's not telling us. Okay. Or at least is trying to obfuscate or maybe lessen the impact. But I got
to be honest, her press conference was the worst attempt at damage control. Now, that press there's a disaster when it comes to how people are shouting over top of each other, trying to get questions in. And heard one about, like, do you think David Crowley regrets his endorsement of you? And like, yeah, he has the opportunity to do the funniest thing right now and get back in and be like, Sarah's people come to me.
Or take his what probably is more likely is he takes his endorsement back.
Yeah.
And endorses someone else.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, I doubt he'll get back in, but you never know.
Well,
crazier things
he's still on the ballot. He's still there.
But I do like, let's sit on just the politics of this press conference. And I think this kind of weaves into her inexperience. I know she's trying to do the whole, look at me, I'm the transparent one. I'm a leader. I took decisive action. This is a massive screw up. Like, no way about it. You want to play some politics? Here's some free advice for you. Don't do a press release about it at 10 p.m. on a Sunday. So all the reporters pre-write their stories Monday morning. Okay. And then they have like 6 hours before a press conference to hype it up. Then it's this huge story that has legs that will go on for a couple of days. Then you have the finance reports, which will be coming out today or at midnight, or depending on when they file, of course. Then you got another day or two. People are going to start pouring in over those finance reports. Instead, you could have just shut up about it. Silently amended, talked to ethics, amended the report. Wednesday comes, there's a story about it. Clearly something's wrong. Well, guess what? You're also competing with the Joel Brennan report, the Kelda report, the Hong report.
Yeah.
Even the Crowley report, the Mandela one, Tom Tiffany, the Assembly Democrats, Assembly Republicans, the Senate. You're competing with all those people.
It's a lot less space on the website.
Yes, a lot less space to compete with.
And then
you can deal with the fallout afterwards.
Right. And then you can say, well, my campaign manager miscalculated some things.
Yeah.
We've let her go.
Yep.
And then no one's asking these questions. But yeah, you gave them 12, 15 hours to come up with questions.
Not that they needed 12 or 15 hours.
But you gave them that time.
But then you did the press conference and you took a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Who's ever doing your comms should have cut you off long ago.
Yeah.
Before you just dropped the 200,000. I'm baffled by, I'm not complaining because it was just sheer gold. It should be a case study in what not to do as a candidate. And this loops back into my, like, I've been saying this, and not that this is some proprietary information or anything, but Sara Rodriguez is not a good politician, period, because she's inexperienced. She's only been doing this
6 years.
Yes. So she flipped, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give it to her. She flipped an assembly seat in the suburbs, Milwaukee and Waukesha County. But it was 2020. The suburbs were obviously reverting a lot.
There was the whole, like, the fact that Biden got 200 million or 20 million more votes than any Democrat before, and we can go into that some other time or some other people have analyzed that.
There was a lot of environment, the shifting to the suburbs that helped her. And to be fair, she has a decent resume for an assembly candidate. So she's a one-term assembly person. Obviously, the maps get redrawn. She basically doesn't have a district anymore. So she says, YOLO. And that's dating myself slightly. She just says, okay, screw it. I'll just go run for lieutenant governor since Mandela was running for Senate.
Yep.
And so here she is, and she's just coasting.
Tony defeats a historically weak Republican candidate. She then kind of coasts in with that and gets shoved to the corner for the next 4 years because no one on Evers' team can really stand her.
Well, and that's all true. Evers and Rodriguez don't like each other, and certainly their teams don't like each other. However, if you're Sara, you are still the sitting lieutenant governor.
Right.
Okay. There are a million of things she could have done to build name ID, get her name out there, free press, write stories. I mean, there's a million things they could have done. And what did she do? Nothing. Okay. She did the bare minimum of going like 72 counties and taking a picture at a local coffee shop.
Right.
That is the bare minimum because your staff does these things for you. You did not go above and beyond. You didn't even try to be a shameless politician. At least Sara Godlewski knows what she is, a shameless politician. Now, Sarah's so shameless she gets in trouble for being so shameless. But for God's sake, Sara, you could have tried a little bit. And maybe you would have, you know what? Having a little bit of media training would have been nice. Because if you ever interacted with a hostile media or had a tough story that you had to maybe inject yourself into as lieutenant governor, because maybe, I don't know, it was a priority of yours or something. Maybe you could have said, maybe I should say this, or maybe I shouldn't say that. But no, you left it up to the absolute crisis of your entire career to learn on the fly that this is what not to do. And so her experience, basically her lack of experience, showed dramatically.
But
and
you want to talk about lack of experience, though, and it got worse for Sara because of her comms team. Her comms team made this so much worse. And it's not just the fact that they threw her to these wolves for 25 minutes while she had to stand up there and try to revert to talking points and get smacked over the head with, how much money do you have sort of questions and why didn't you figure that this sooner? But her campaign team, her comms team, sent out some talkers. Said, if you could post this on social media and show your support for me, that would be great. I need a chorus of supporters out there who with me. Here are some examples of what you need. And it lists 4 or 5 examples or 3 examples here of things you could post on X to show your support for Sara. But in all of the ones that tagged Sara Rodriguez in there, they used the wrong account. And it wasn't, they used her official account, her LG account to her account. They used an account that is defunct. Instead of Sara for Wisconsin, it was Sara Rodriguez WI in all of these. And then the campaign had to come out and put out something that says, oh, we put the wrong one in there. That is the most basic level of comms work, is knowing your candidate's social media tags.
And that's what the Democrats are supposed to be good at, doing the little tchotchke social media stuff. Oh, we're so trendy. Look at all of our graphics. We're so hip and, good on messaging. Meanwhile, it's crisis mode and you can't even get the social media correct. So note to Sara, fire comms person. Actually, on second, just fire everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Because
everyone
then you don't
sucks.
have to pay them and then drop out on Friday.
And then maybe just put your $200,000 into one last ad and just YOLO and hope it works for you. But this was just, it is the cherry on top. It's hey, nothing's going right. Oh, by the way, we can't even text our own supporters correctly. And of course, this text message was leaked to the press.
Yep.
These are supposed to be core supporters that are now leaking stuff to the press. So not really good optics when your inner circle that you're supposed to trust doesn't seem to trust you anymore. So,
but no, her campaign is pretty much dead. And the only people who are trying to keep it alive are Molly Beck and Jesse Apoyan at the Journal Sentinel, who did, again, you talk about shamelessness. You talk about people who lack any basic dignity, who can write this with a straight face. They called Sara's financial scandal, this whole thing of losing $800,000 at least, or fabricating $800,000, financial errors. The entire thing was summed up as financial errors. Just something that, the back of the napkin math was wrong.
Oh, darn.
This is a little hiccup that can be fixed with a quick amendment at the Wisconsin Elections Commission.
I forgot that reimbursement for dinner.
Right. Right.
$45 charge. I forgot it. Yep. We fixed it though. It's okay.
Yep. We put one donor in the wrong column. Oh, that's all this is.
Yeah. Meanwhile, hundreds of $1,000s. Trust has been broken. Big scandal. And nothing but basically a footnote, it seems like. But
that was already pushed to the bottom of the website by 10:30 the next day.
And now it's gone now.
Yeah. Completely gone. I mean, it's the absolute, like, Jessie is probably very upset that she had to take time away from the gay hockey show on Netflix on Sunday night to actually do some work. I'm sorry you couldn't take another picture of your dinner, Jessie. Do your fucking job.
It would have been nice. And I mean, this is the biggest scandal that we've had of the primary, of the entire primary.
Since Kirk Bangstad tried to get in, which was just content. I don't know if that was necessarily scandal. I mean, it was scandalous. It was scandalous. But this was
everyone kind of rolled their eyes at it.
Yeah. It was more content generation, and just he kept saying stupid stuff. He didn't, do anything that was this bad financially. Yes. Yeah. So this has to be the biggest one. And of course,
is Kirk Bangstad her treasurer?
It might be.
I mean,
through effervescent. We're gonna find effervescent blue in her.
How does Kirk Bangstad's finances somehow better kept than Sara Rodriguez?
Yeah,
that we'll never know.
Mm-hmm. But I think now the other stuff is coming out, and again, you made this so much worse by dropping all this. Is the comms team for Sara sucks? Now it's come out that people did a quick CCAP search of Kara Spencer. Mm-hmm. The campaign manager who was fired, to find out that, she was sued for $8,000 owed in unpaid rent amidst an eviction proceeding in Dane County last year. She was hit for $1,000, and she somehow was able to argue her way out of a lawsuit in 2021 over $1,000 debt. After she had just left the State Assembly Democratic Campaign Committee job. She somehow successfully argued that Dane County was an improper venue for the lawsuit. But she's had some stuff in her background, again, that predates Sarah's hiring her for this campaign, goes back to the ADCC days, probably going to draw some scrutiny for those financial reports from way back when as well. But yeah, just all around a terrible situation.
Well, and I don't think, trust me, obviously this lady's personal records, I'm sure they're coming to light now because of finance issues personally, finance issues professionally. However, let's not that we're scapegoating, but when it comes down, people think that a politician is just like the sum of their team, like they have to have a good team around them and the team do everything. And there's a lot, like those staff probably do a ton of work on behalf of Sara, but at the end of the day, the politician is still the politician. They have to be able to rally people, be able to inspire people, be able to assemble the right team, be able to properly manage them. Okay. I know people see politicians as just like the figurehead and they're like the deep state controls them. And like, sure, there is probably some of that, but there's still people at the end of the day. And I just think this just encapsulates the entire Sara Rodriguez experiment. It just, everything from, saying that she's the most electable, she's the best leader, like it's all a facade. It's gone. It's gone. There's nothing there. And I'm so happy and that I'm so vindicated on this. Not that again, that I'm like, oh wow, I really went on a limb on this one, but it's fun to be right.
Yeah. So to wrap this up, if you had to make a bet during our Friday show, or maybe by the time our show comes out on Monday, will Sara still be in the race? Will she drop out? And will we be talking about that on Friday?
Yes, she will be dropping out, in my opinion, tomorrow.
You think it's that quick?
Yep.
Just quit the. Okay, I've heard some people say
tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Okay, so I've heard that's the earliest I've heard, because then you're right. Then you completely back out of having to answer for your disastrous finance report. I've heard people say Thursday because her campaign team can't even get a Friday news dump right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say
they can't get much right. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna do like Friday at noon, like 12:05. I mean, if I really have to place the time because she's gonna be late for it.
I just think that this has been such a firestorm so early. I mean, what do you do for donor calls? She's calling donors, and what does she say?
I'm sorry, I double counted you. Give us more money.
She can't perform in front of the cameras. She couldn't do that. I can't imagine that the donor calls are going very well right now. And if she can't get money, the last thing I'll say, like, there's the optics of, does she stay in, just ride out the ship and just YOLO? Or does she try to drop out, maybe try to save some face and just hopefully people kind of forget? maybe you endorse somebody, but then who wants that endorsement?
Oh, that's a toxic endorsement.
Yeah, then no one wants your
and like
endorsement.
No one, again, you have Francesca Hong and Mandela Barnes on the far left. You have Kelda on the far left.
Or maybe just say screw it and just endorse
in Joel Brennan
or endorse Franny. Ultimate chaos.
That would be a full chaos move. I think maybe you go to Joel and think that like everyone who is moderate or center left realizes that at least we have the squeaky clean guy with, no finance troubles, no oppo book. Like,
I think the Sara splits between Joel and Kelda.
Yeah, I think so too.
But
I don't think it matters at this point.
No.
With that, we have to get to our interview this week. I got a chance to sit down with Mike Morgan. He's running for the assembly seat in the Wauwatosa area. Real unique guy with an interesting background. We talked about his time as a baseball umpire. He worked for Harley Davidson. He's doing a lot of campaign work. He is working really hard, knocking doors. And, he even worked in the legislature and city government in the 80s. So we get into that. So hope you enjoy the interview as much as I had sitting down with Mike.
Today on the show, we're sitting down with Mike Morgan, a longtime Wauwatosa resident and former city council member who's running for the Wisconsin Assembly in the 13th District. Mike's focused on three main issues, which is making Wisconsin more affordable for working families, bringing real accountability to state government, improving accessibility so regular people can actually get the help they need from their representatives. I've known Mike for a few years now. He's one of the hardest working guys in southeastern Wisconsin, and I'm really excited to talk to him today. So Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Justin. Really appreciate it. Good to be here.
Yeah.
And looking forward to it.
So Mike, how's the campaign going so far? Give us some highlights.
Well, just kind of getting off the ground, working on it the last couple of months, got the signatures, starting to hit the doors. There is a primary on the Democratic side. Mm-hmm. So there's two candidates. I won't mention their names. That is I don't need to do that. It's all about me. People always ask me that at the doors. Well, who are you running against? And I always say, no, don't. They're not here. I'm here to talk to you.
That's smart.
One of the things I did do is in this past spring, I ran what I felt was a great campaign for a local alderman here, but the other side outspent me 44-1. $11,000 to $250. Most of it was national Democratic Party money that just came in at the last minute. The other candidate didn't even complete their financial forms on time or correctly. So, but I did do 1,500 doors in two wards that are now in the assembly district. Right. So that kind of, again, goes to my background of why I'm running. I served on the Tulsa Council. I have a lot of experience in the community and looking forward to hitting a lot more doors than that.
Yeah, so the district is the Wauwatosa and Brookfield area, just right on that border between western Milwaukee and eastern Waukesha County.
Exactly. What I tell people is it's all of Elm Grove, which is obviously a smaller numbers-wise, but it's the whole village of Elm Grove, and then it's most of Brookfield and most of Wauwatosa, but not all.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that background. So you were on the Wauwatosa City Council. You worked in PR and marketing, and you've done a lot of community work. Can you just touch on that real quickly and how those experiences have shaped your approach to the campaign?
Sure, 100%. Like I said, I just ended my 6-year term on the Tulsa Common Council. Really enjoyed it. Was head of the Transportation Committee for 4 years. Was head of an aldermanic selection committee when we had a vacancy. And I take a lot of pride in the fact that, as a conservative in Wauwatosa, I worked with the mayor and the common council. And a lot of people would say, how can you work with that constituency? And it was fine. I just tried to get things done. And we can talk about some of the things I did a little bit later. And then in Wauwatosa, I founded a junior Trojans baseball program when our kids were in grade school. That still exists, and still in contact with them. Been very involved in sports, the Tulsa Booster Club, Tulsa West Booster Club, And also on the east side, my wife works at Tosa East, and we have so many friends in Wauwatosa. It goes between, broadens the whole city. I always say it's a friendly rivalry, unless they're playing each other. A couple of years ago, the Tosa East girls and the Tosa West boys each won Division II state, and that was one of the coolest things that's happened in sports in Tosa, and as long as we've been here. So
that's fantastic. No, I love getting to talk to candidates in this environment, because you learn about their background, and coaching sports has to play a role in how you communicate with people at the doors, or how you kind of approach knocking doors every day.
It totally does. And another thing I've done is, and it's relating to people. I've umpired baseball games, youth baseball games, since I stopped coaching the kids. I got into umpiring, as a lot of dads do. I know some other former coaches in Tulsa now who are umpiring, as just to make a little extra money and stay in the game. And you learn how to deal with people at their best and worst moments, whether it's a kid getting hit with a pitch and having some tears and trying to deal with that, or a coach or a fan getting a little worked up and kind of trying to maintain a level of decorum and let them vent a little bit and move on. And that totally relates to talking to people professionally and at the doors and politics.
Yeah, I imagine being an umpire, you got to hear it said the best and worst, and I got to think you could hear some of the worst things said to you on doors, and it's not a problem because you've already heard it as an umpire.
Yeah. In fact, I have people, if they say, well, I'm not going to vote for you because you're a Republican, I'll say, well, let's talk about it, and I'm really more of an independent, and I want to listen to all opinions and voices. And it's a representative democracy. It's not about, and the other side is really making this election about the party, and they want to win everything. And you're representing a district and the people of the district, and you have to listen to both sides. And that's the way I look at it. And that's the way I looked at it on the Tosa Council, or any kind of community group or professional position I've been involved in.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. You worked for Democrats in the state Senate and in the Milwaukee Common Council back in the 80s. What changed? Maybe what changed for you, or what changed for them, and how do you bring that up in your campaign conversations?
Well, that's a great question, and it's true. Going back, I have a political science degree from UW-Madison in the mid 80s, and I was a Senate page at the Capitol. And then I worked for a Democratic state senator and a Democratic Common Council member who I still stay in touch with. And one thing I'll say is, back then, the politics of the university was not as biased as it is now. I had political science classes, and they were just I learned a lot, very factual, and an excellent education. But over time, the Democratic Party has just veered in this other direction, very extreme and far to the left. And I have a picture of JFK behind me. I'm a big admirer of the old school Democrats like JFK and RFK. Now we have RFK Jr., who's doing a great job in this administration, and I admire a lot. And I say a lot of the Democrats that I worked with in the state Senate in the 80s would now be moderate Republicans if they were in the legislature. And it's as simple as that. It was a more collegial, looking more towards compromise. Hey, we need to get things done. It's not about, sometimes it's going to be about, we want to get the issue and the wedge issue and that. But generally, it should be more about compromise. That's what politics is, the art of compromise. And let's do what's best for the people, not the party.
No, I like that a lot. That's a great way. So, do you have any point to a concrete example of when you were working with the Democrats, or that will play into how you communicate that on doors, or something that you really did in your past that you admire from working with Democrats?
Yeah, it's another good question, and there's a number of them. But one I've talked about a lot on the Tosa City Council, and it actually goes back to my father when he was in the insurance industry. He really helped support a lot of disadvantaged minority contractors. That was part of his business model back, when it wasn't even a thing, but he just did it because that's what you do. And then when I started working in government for the city council, and then I worked for the Miller Park project, and a big part of those jobs was again, minority business, disadvantaged minority business support. And I know a lot of people talk about, DEI and where we're going with that, but we're talking about dollars and cents when you talk about helping disadvantaged contractors. It's a legitimate program with, like the State Department of Transportation, that has worked very well over the years. And if legitimate contractors get jobs and money, with a little bit of an advantage there, and I've pushed for that in TOSA. So when we have TIF projects, tax incremental finance districts, where the city is giving a tax advantage, we have an incentive that I push for in our programs and was supported by everybody, to incentivize them to bring in disadvantaged workers on the project from certain zip codes, and local workers, not out of state, and local contractors and minority contractors. And that's worked very well. I'm very proud of it. Other governments have done it. The city did it. The sewage district has done it. And again, that's some practical experience that I would bring to the job.
No, I think that's something that a lot of folks can agree upon, is that, making sure that these big projects, anything in that realm is handled locally, and that money is then going back into the community and back into the local economy is
right. When
important.
I worked at Miller Park, we had a program, and it was a 25% goal, and we achieved it. And then that in turn worked for the Fiserv Forum and some of the other private projects, big ones like Northwestern Mutual. And as well as bringing people into the trades, we had some incentives for that. And that's another big issue that I'd like to get involved in, is seeing how we can get more younger people into the trades. That's a big issue. You don't have to go to college and increase debt. Our son's friends are doing it now. They're electricians, they're plumbers. They have no debt, and they're making six figures and buying houses and getting married and having kids.
Yeah, I told this story. We interviewed Laura Kokum, who was with ABC, the Association of Building and Contractors, and we were talking about how a lot of the people that go to my daughter's school, they're in the trades. They're, in HVAC and all those sort of things, and they're making quite a bit of money and having a lot of success in that. And if I was any better with my hands, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be out doing what they're doing and making a way more money.
Yeah, it's got it. We got to push that more, and people are. And some of the schools, I give them credit where they're doing that. They've had a great program here in Wauwatosa, a trades program that has grown over the last few years, and we need more of that. We really do.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your campaign for the assembly here. So you kind of running on the 3 A's, right? You call it affordability, accountability, and accessibility. Can you walk us through what each of those mean in practical terms for the district and for the voters?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, affordability, and of course that's the buzzword now. It's become cliche. One of the things I hate cliches. I try to avoid them. When I worked at Harley, everything was iconic and cool, and we would try, like, that's just a cliche. If you have to say you're iconic and cool, you're really not. And if we're just throwing this affordability around like a cliche, it doesn't mean anything. But to me, it means in state government, and my background in the city is trying to keep the tax rate down, and make people be able to afford their homes and not have these massive tax bills. And I know, we went through that surplus issue. I'm not going to get into the weeds there, but we need to work towards a compromise there where we can provide more incentives to cities and local governments and school districts they can get money from the state. We can give them shared revenue, but it needs to be, and that goes to my next A, is accountability. Okay, you don't just give people money and say, okay, here you go. When I was a kid, my dad gave me money, and I had to work for it. I had to cut the grass and shovel snow, and there's some accountability there. And that's the same with these local governments. We recently went through something in Wauwatosa. We merged our fire department with West Dallas. And a big part of that was getting these innovation grants from the state of Wisconsin. And that was an incentive to, bring in some state money. They essentially said, well, you need to be more efficient with your fire department, but not reduce safety. And that was a very complicated issue and process that we went through, but we ended up supporting it. I really wanted to see that the rank and file workers on the line, on the trucks and in the station supported it, and they did. So, and then the last thing I'd say is accessibility to me means government has just gotten way too big at all levels. The federal is obvious. The state, again, having worked there in the 80s and seen this massive growth of state government over my lifetime, just the bureaucracies and the waste, and same in local governments. The county, you go down to the city and our school districts, okay, we're getting these big referendums, but where is the money going? I want to support teachers and administrative staff people and build that up, but we don't need the money going to the administrative buildings and the bureaucracy. Let's give it to the teachers and the students and the people that really need it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Especially at the school level, like you said, that there's people out there, there's so much waste in the schools that when you find out, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars per student, what actually gets down to the classroom is really, really questionable sometimes.
Right. And that hurts the morale of the school districts. If the teachers aren't happy and the staff isn't happy, the students aren't happy. And we need to, like I said, pay good teachers more, pay good staff more, but we don't need, again, a big bloated bureaucracy at a district office telling them what to do and over-regulating them. You need to seek balance. And I guess that's another theme of my campaign. I'm really about balance. I know that might seem like an easy way out, but you got to look at all sides of these issues and how are they going to benefit the district and the state.
No, I agree. And you talk about, accountability. I think there's very few state agencies that actually have to report on what they're doing with the money going in. And
that's a great point. And one of the things I've been thinking of is I know that Tom Tiffany is talking about auditing every agency in the state. And I think that's a great idea. One of the state senators I worked for back in the day was head of the Joint Audit Committee. And they were a highly respected committee that audited agencies, and they picked and choose. And I was at Miller Park when the state audited the Miller Park project, and they came in and we had to account for every nickel and dime. Believe me, I remember I was a communications person, but I worked with our finance manager on it and our whole staff. It was a good process. And that's you shouldn't be afraid of generally of a legitimate audit. It happens in the business community. My son is an accountant; he was an auditor. That's part of the world, and you have to accept that. And I applaud fairly auditing local or state and agencies and all levels of government, school districts, whatever.
Totally agree. I think more of that is necessary. I think if you ask certain state agencies, they probably don't even know what their full budget is. And, when you get bloated and you get into the billions of dollars and stuff coming in from the feds or stuff coming in from the state, and you kind of wonder what's being done with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we talked about this just for a second, but you worked for several years at Harley Davidson. So you have to know a little bit about folks working in the trades. So you mentioned a little bit just a minute ago. I'd like to touch on that again of how we get more students involved in the trades and realizing that, that's a better career path for a lot of folks.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I was on the marketing side, but we would do part of my job for several years was doing tours of the plants. When Harley, they had a plant on Capitol Drive. That's now a U-Haul location. Plant is still there's still a big manufacturing plant in Menominee Falls. Thank God that over there, and we would take media and dignitaries through the plant, and you really got an appreciation for what goes on there. We know that automation is taking over, and you see that, but there's a level of skill involved in running the automation. While that might replace a couple of jobs, it creates maybe a higher level job in a factory and an hourly workforce. So I really got a good appreciation for that. And we would also work events at Harley, like you'd go down to a bike week in Daytona, and you'd be working the show floor with people from the factories. We had a factory in New York, Pennsylvania, and Kansas City, and you really get to know that field. And I guess another thing I'd mention real quick is after COVID, unfortunately, I got tripped up in my public relations career. Everybody shut down. Mm-hmm. And I had spent 2 or 3 years working as an hourly worker at the age of 60 plus, driving a FedEx box truck, working an hourly wage, working 14-hour days, unloading boxes, loading boxes with these great people on, and an hourly workforce of unbelievably good, hardworking people delivering packages. And I think that was a really good experience for me. Not ideal, not what I planned to do, but I don't know how many people running for office can say, yeah, I worked 2 years in an hourly job, on a hard, sweaty, tough job in a factory. And I worked for Fastenal as well, and loading boxes, manufacturing, seeing how these people and these plants work.
Yeah, that's certainly a variety of experience, and it's not ones that you anticipate taking on when, at any age really, but, good for you to, kind of grind like that. That's impressive.
Not
a lot of people.
It was a grind, but it was an enjoyable experience. I met some great people. We're still friends and longtime friends. And yes.
That's excellent. Yeah. I mean, your background is really unique, and I think it's real, you said, amazing. You go from Harley to, other marketing positions at Capco, and I think that brings
engineering field. I've seen it, how business and public-private partnerships work at a lot of different levels.
Yeah, and I think that that brings a different aspect to the campaign. Do you think if there's one way you could, or one sentence or two that could summarize how you bring that to the state legislature, could you kind of sum it up?
Well, I think I have broad, like you said, a very broad level of expertise and experience in the public sector, in the private sector at various levels and companies, and I would be able to hit the ground running. Having worked for the city, even though I worked for the state government 40 some years ago, I've been involved. I've been around it. I know people. I worked for I worked for the city of Milwaukee. Going back to when Henry Meyer was the mayor, when I first started at the Common Council, and then John Norquist came in, and I'm friends with Tom Barrett, and so I'm familiar with that. I have a lot of friends who were involved. In fact, one of the funny things is I ran for county supervisor in Milwaukee back in around 1990, and I lost, and a couple of my friends ended up getting jobs at the city after that. I like to say I'm the only person who ran for office and lost and helped get his friends a job in government. Usually doesn't happen that way.
No, not usually. Usually you got the spoil system comes after you win. And, one of the other things I wanted to ask, you talked a little bit about being an umpire and being in coaching, and just how do you think that experience with the kids at that age and education plays a role in the district and, in your political philosophy?
That's a great question, and it plays a very important role. Having had, helped have raised 4 boys with my wife, all in sports and other activities like scouts, and you try to do a broad spectrum. I love sports. I love going to plays. When we go to the plays here in Tosa, it's just wonderful to see what these kids do. So you get an appreciation for it. I've been a substitute teacher for a couple years at Wauwatosa. That really gave me a good perspective, especially, and we're talking now about special education aid and increases that we need there. I strongly support that, and I've seen it directly that there's more special ed needs in the schools at all levels. So, and I love that. I love teaching special ed kids and being around them. It's just, there's no better joy of seeing, the success of these children in special ed. And then from a sports standpoint, I still score basketball games at Tosa West and am involved in the sports. And like I said, the umpiring, it just keeps you grounded. You know what people are going through. I love being around young people. I love being around my kids' friends, and even the high school, and seeing the kids play baseball and seeing how things. I always say things are the same and they've changed. When I was a little kid growing up, I just wanted to be out in the summer and throw the ball around and swim and ride my bike and play games and yard games and all that stuff with their friends. Sure. Well, kids, even though they have the technology now, and that's something we do need to watch because it is a big issue, the social media and the technology in the schools, but people's demeanor is the same. The kids want, you're a kid, you're a person, you want to go out and have fun and enjoy life and just, again, seek a balance.
That's fantastic. And then
what we need to let people do.
Sure. Do you have anything you want me to ask? Otherwise, I think we could go into our final 3 questions. Anything else you want to highlight? I can.
Not offhand. I mean, there's. I guess the one thing is there's a lot to it, but I also like to keep things very simple. I'm a big believer in that we are overloaded with information right now. And you can say, well, you're just going back to a different time. Well, like I said before, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And there's a cliche that I don't like. But, we just need to let people, I think a overriding theme is let's let people live their lives. We need to have some regulation, a reasonable amount. You need to have speed limits and laws, and then let's enforce them and make people accountable. If you make a mistake, here's one last thing I'll throw out there. The legislator I used to work for, he was a Democrat in the 80s, and he pushed for a lot of Democrats that then, especially in the city of Milwaukee, would push for tougher enforcement of criminal penalties and 3 strikes you're out and things like that. And he used to reference the Leave It to Beaver system of justice, which I know is an old TV show from the 50s that people don't remember, but it's a brilliant show. If you watch it now, it still resonates. And the Leave It to Beaver system of justice was the slap on the wrist. Word Cleaver saying, "Okay, Beaver, don't do that again. Okay, Wally, Eddie, don't do that again." Well, you got to have some accountability, So that's where that goes.
Man, a Leave It to Beaver reference, but no, you're right. It does still resonate, man.
I don't know if anybody under 50 will get that, but there's reruns out there on MeTV and that.
Sure. So
YouTube, whatever you want.
Yeah. So, Mike, we ask all the candidates that come on this show 3 big questions, help people learn a little bit more about you in a different way. So the first question we ask is if you could pick one iconic Wisconsin spot, whether it's, a supper club, a brewery, Packers tailgate, where you could hold a voter rally, where would it be? What would it look like? And what do you want to talk to voters about?
Well, that's the toughest question you can ask to a guy that's lived here my whole life and been around this state and been fortunate to, again, go to UW-Madison. My sons went to Whitewater, UWM. I just love this state in Milwaukee and have been a part of some cool stuff, and I could go on and on. But I guess the one thing I'll throw out there, since it's local and I'm actually having an event there, is O'Donoghue's Irish Pub in Elm Grove.
Sure.
And one of the things that's funny there is me and my wife just went to Ireland and Scotland, and I took a picture. And as you can imagine, there's a few O'Donoghue's pubs in Ireland.
Yeah.
And we took a picture out in front of one and said, "Is this Elm Grove or is this Ireland?" So I think that's a good exemplary place of Jamie there and his family, a local business. They do a great job. I'm actually having a campaign kickoff event there on the 29th. So if we can schedule that, but what a great place. And having been in Ireland and seeing the pubs in Ireland, there's a few authentic Irish places in Milwaukee. And around here, like I love O'Sullivan's. Big fan of Laughs in the Village.
Sure.
But O'Donoghue's, having just been to Ireland, is a really cool place. And again, going back to my coaching, I coached one of the O'Donoghue's with my son in Little League Baseball 20-some years ago.
Sure.
So there's a lot of cool connections there.
That's fantastic. So, yeah. And, hey, I've been there a couple times myself for some events, and they do a good job. So second question, of course, growing up or serving in Wisconsin, what's one lesson you've taken away from the state, whether it's, family farm, small town festival, or a hunting trip, something that shapes your personal and political philosophy?
Well, that's another. I could go on a number of
things. Please.
I've been bowling with my son. I've been bowling with my son this last year down in Bayview, and again, I bowled a lot when I was a kid, in and out of it. But what a great Wisconsin tradition, and you go down there and you're just having a blast bowling with how can you beat bowling with your son in Bayview at the Bayview Bowl with a bunch of just really cool people. Not super competitive, but still competitive. I guess the other thing I'd mention is with my dad recently passing, 95. That he was just a role model for me, and I take so many things from my childhood. I grew up in Whitefish Bay, and I know you believe it or not, he was a working class dude. He grew up on the east side. He worked his way up. He served in the military, and just was a great role model for me and my family and our kids and everybody he touched. So I think if you're lucky enough to have good family support, it's just so important. And I was very fortunate in that sense. And so politically, I take things away from him. He always said, treat people as you want to be treated, be fair. And he was a good listener. And that's another thing with me. A lot of politicians like to talk. And if you don't, then, well, then you're too quiet. He's just sitting there. Well, I'm listening. And when I was on the Common Council at Tosa, I picked my battles, and I didn't talk a lot. But when I did, I felt like I was making a point. If somebody else had made the point, I don't need to go on top of that. I would really look to again, be a good listener.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sorry to hear his passing. I know it just happened, but great that you're living on his legacy. And yes, bowling is. My kids just got into it, and I bowled when I was a little bit older than they were, but they're having fun doing it. Now my wife and I can be competitive again, and yeah, no, it's a great
comeback.
Yeah,
I think it really is. I know everything's cyclical, but it is. It's a fun working class sport that anybody can do. And again, you go to Bolero over here. There's bowling alleys in Tosa, in Brookfield, all over, and it's gone through some ups and downs. But it's just there's nothing more Milwaukee and Wisconsin than bowling, having a beer or whatever.
I love that answer. So final question we ask is, you get to wave a magic wand and set a day one policy or roll back a policy going on in Madison right now without worrying about getting the votes or getting it signed into law. You just snap your fingers, it happens. What would that be for you?
Well, I guess a couple things. I think the first thing would be, honestly, is going to that accountability and accessibility, just trying to make government more understandable for the average person. People are pulled in so many directions. How can we try to simplify government? Because I think people are just intimidated and overwhelmed. And then these snippets on social media, and that's not the big picture. So in today's world, let's try to simplify it. Just showing the meetings doesn't do anything. Just sending out a newsletter or making a Facebook post, you got to keep it simple. In fact, I've noticed that what I try to do with my messaging is keep it really simple. 1 sentence, 2 sentences. People aren't going to read a long diatribe or listen to a long speech. Attention spans have changed. So let's make things more accessible. And I guess specifically, one of the things I'd like to see if I could wave a wand, it would be public transportation in urban areas like Waukesha and Milwaukee. I drive around and I see empty buses all the time, big empty buses. And we need to get a handle on that, because you're not serving the constituents. Another thing I did is I drove Uber for a couple of years, right? Mm-hmm. And I would see people in the central city taking a $10 or $20 Uber ride to work here in Wauwatosa or Brookfield. Mm-hmm. And the reason is it's convenient. They're paying an hour of their pay scale to get to work and back. And the reason is the buses just don't cut it anymore. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to see a merging of the Uber rideshare system, smaller vehicles, get away from the big, bloated, old school buses that are really out of date, and riding around empty. And let's cut those in half and have more, like I said, a more effective urban transportation system. And that can, even though it's the counties, it does relate to the state, and the state could make some inroads there.
No, that's fascinating. And I was just in DC, where they have a pretty robust, system, public transportation system. But you're right. It does go where people want to go. Right. And I think, when they start snipping off, bus lines and rerouting them, and it doesn't take them those places, it's not effective anymore.
I mean, I remember taking the bus. I've taken the bus many times, and the flyers and and the buses used to be crowded. And it doesn't take a rocket science to look at them and say there's nobody, or there's less than 6 people on these buses, even in busy areas in the city. And that doesn't serve the public. We need to get people around, and we have to realize we are a smaller area. We're a metro area of about 1 million people. We're not DC. We're not Chicago. We're not New York. And even if you look at other cities, and I've done some research, some of these systems are undergoing change, and we need to modernize them. Let's use the technology of the future and not the past.
Indeed. So, Mike, last question we have for everyone is, where can people go to find out more about you and your campaign? Websites, Facebook, let us know. Where is it?
I've been using Facebook for the Common Council for several years as a communication tool. So it was Mike Morgan for Wauwatosa. Now it's Mike Morgan for Wisconsin, trying to keep it simple. And then I think our website is going to be going live today, which is MikeMorganWI.com. And it's some real basic information there, frankly, but it's an area where people can contribute. We're going to need to raise a lot of money, and that's all. I'm not even talking about that. Unfortunately, big money is part of politics now, and everybody says they hate it, and that would be another thing. I'd love to figure out a way that we could better regulate the way lobbying and money affects politics.
Sure.
But I do have to raise money, and that'll be there. And I do have an X account and Instagram. But again, just contact me. I am more than happy to talk to anyone. It happens all the time when I was at the city council. And I guess one last thing is, I worked in constituent services from day one. I was a page in the Senate. I worked for a legislator. I worked for a city council member. I've been a city council member. I worked at Harley. We had to respond. Customer relations was priority one. So I know how that works. You got to respond to phone calls from top to bottom, and I have no problem, getting somebody's street plowed or street fixed or garbage picked up. I've been doing been kind of my whole life.
Sure thing. Well, that's fantastic, Mike. Thank you for taking the time today. We really appreciate talking to you. Again, a very interesting background that life you've led so far to bring you to the state assembly. And I know you're a hardworking guy and you've done it for other folks. So I know you're going to be able to do it for yourself, and we look forward to.
It's perfect timing to use all my experience and do the job well and represent the district and the state.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Awesome. Great to be here.
And with that, thank you for joining us today for our midweek episode. If you like what you hear, make sure to drop us that 5-star on Apple or Spotify. We're also available on YouTube, Rumble, Substack, iHeartRadio, all the places. You know where to find us. New Fashion Conservatives, New Fashion Pod. I'm Justin Phillips. With me, as always, is the great Shadow Governor Boss.
Good night.